Hello, I'm Carlos LRC, a 77-year-old, 100% service disabled Vietnam War combat infantry veteran. I'm also a husband, father, and a grandfather, as well as a sociologist and news junkie, and an avid student of history. This is my audio and video podcast entitled 15 Minutes with Carlos. I am continuing today with a range of socio-political issues under the heading of Surrender Management, America in Retreat. It is based on an 11-book series I published in 2011, suggesting that we have surrendered our national values to small but loud interest groups, that we are in constant retreat at home and abroad. I have written books on each of the 11 topics, and now I have condensed them into 15-minute information capsules for average person to grasp the essence and become basically conversant on these issues. Today, our topic is the national debt. Let me start by quoting President Alexander Hamilton. Quote, "A national debt, if it is not excessive, will be to us a national blessing," unquote. So let's look at the math together. There are some basic facts. Our national debt is leading our country into bankruptcy. The annual interest payment alone is now close to our total defense spending. This level of debt we are accumulating is unsustainable and will soon become unpayable. Our spending on social entitlements is a major reason for the debt. Talk of reforming entitlement becomes political suicide. Every president rushes to buy their re-election with debt. Members of Congress need earmarks to stay in power. The sad reality is that our international credit rating has been lowered. The American dollar is being challenged by China as the world's reserve currency, and the American military power is being rapidly outclassed by China. A significant part of our national infrastructure is crumbling, and our nation has no reserves to meet future national emergencies, not even enough petroleum reserves in storage. In the words of President Thomas Jefferson, quote, "I believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and that the principle of spending money to be paid by posterity under the name of funding is but swindling futurity on a large scale," unquote. Let's hear views from the liberals. We spend too much for defense. There is too much waste and corruption. Our taxes are too low. Education underfunding is perpetuating an underclass. Social entitlements are human rights that can never be reduced. We must end corporate welfare. Federal spending must be used to create jobs. We need to spend more on green energy projects. Let's hear views from the conservatives. We need more defense spending to keep up with China before it overwhelms us. Government-funded, accelerated green energy projects are usually overpriced, inefficient, and increase the national debt. Energy production at home grows the economy. Lowering taxes to grow the economy increases government revenue, not the other way around. Teachers should be paid more, but in an efficient school choice system, not controlled by teachers' unions. Entitlements are human rights, but only for those who need it. Social Security and Medicare should not be infinite for the affluent. Let me repeat words of Senator Everett Dirksen. Quote, "A billion here, a billion there, sooner or later it adds up to real money." Unquote. Now my take. The clock is ticking louder and louder as we continue to borrow beyond our means. Free money for the government is not eternal. The rest of the world is not our piggy bank, and they will soon let us know. No priority issue ever has enough money, and we never find politically realistic ways to lower the budget deficit and the debt. The federal government has to enact a balanced budget amendment. It would force competition for available funds and control some of the waste. Subsidies to American private industry should be ended, except when required to defend against unfair foreign competition. We should reject the claim that entitlement reform is politically suicide. The American people are waiting for a common sense dialogue on this issue. First of all, we must separate Social Security insurance funds and Medicare from the country's general funds. Although the SSI fund is legally separate, in fact, the government borrows from it to finance the general fund. The reality is that these loans are seldom, if ever, paid back. They only add to the national debt in a complicated exchange of bonds and other financial instruments. They become unfunded obligations. These SSI funds must go back into a lockbox. The system would accumulate healthy revenues into the future. In the words of Milton Friedman, Nobel Prize economist and advisor to President Ronald Reagan, quote, "If you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, in 5 years there'd be a shortage of sand," unquote. The Medicare system, the SSI Medicare system, is the largest program of the federal government. It is about a quarter of the budget, and it covers around 15% of the U.S. population. It keeps some 2/3 of the elderly out of poverty. However, SSI will be out of funds in a decade or so. The next thing that needs to be done to strengthen the Social Security system is to eliminate the payment cap that allows the wealthy to limit their annual contribution to the system. American earners now pay 6.2% tax on the first $160,200 only, or $9,932.40 per year. Higher earners are SSI tax-free beyond that cap, so that a person earning $160,200 pays the same as another person making 20, 30, and more times more. In addition, SSI must be recognized as a retirement account program, which are finite in nature. The payment after retirement should not exceed a person's contribution plus interest over the years. When a person exhausts their accumulated funds, they should be transferred to a new means-tested social care program. The wealthy in society need no longer receive government subsidy to the end of their lives with national debt money. A quote from President Barack Obama. Quote, "The fact that we are here today to debate raising American debt limit is a sign of leadership failure. It is a sign that we now depend on ongoing financial assistance from foreign countries to finance our government reckless fiscal policies." Unquote. The federal government pays half of the cost for the states-based Medicaid program, again with deficit spending. A senior's homestead value up to $688,000 is exempted from calculating eligibility for Medicaid when entering a long-term care facility. The home value is way above the average person's home and should be lowered. If the senior's homestead equity has a higher than the regional average value, a lien on the property should be entered to reimburse the Medicaid program. It should not remain untouched, as inheritance for relatives who frequently don't contribute to the care of their elderly. As stated by Senator Chuck Grassley, quote, "There is a lot of waste in government-run programs generally, and a lot of waste and fraud and misuse of money in Medicare and Medicaid that can be saved." Unquote. In the final analysis, only the federal government overspends the money and increases the national debt. It is foolish to expect that it will stop overspending voluntarily. Spending is fun and politically profitable. The blank check given to the federal government by itself is a counterproductive structure of governance. It is the structure of government finances that needs to change with legal constraints. Reforming legislators is wishful thinking. We all know what needs to be done to put guardrails in our national bank account. A balanced budget, whether legislated or constitutionalized, is the answer. Let me again quote President Thomas Jefferson. Quote, "I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that His justice cannot sleep forever." Unquote. This concludes our episode today. You can tune in to new episodes on my audio and video podcast every month. If you find value in my publication, please take a minute to subscribe for free in YouTube and or Spotify for radio. Your support makes it possible for me to continue to speak out. Please visit my website at 15minuteswithcarlos.com. This is Carlos L. Arce signing off. Make yourself a great day.